Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about the legal reasoning section of the CLAT 2026 question paper. The exam took place on 7th of December 2025, and in this video we will go through the answers to the questions asked along with the strategy that future aspirants should follow. Now, before we begin, a quick introduction about myself. I'm a law graduate and I have completed my BCom LLB honors degree, and thereafter I have also completed my LLM in corporate law, and then I have cleared UGC NET examination. I have previously worked as an assistant professor at one of the India's premier central government institutions. Now let's dive in to the legal reasoning section of the CLAT 2026 question paper. This is the first passage given in the question paper. When we see the passage, we should first look at the source of the passage. Now this source gives us direction on what kind of material, what kind of source, what kind of material that should be referred while preparing for the exam, number one. Number two, what kind of articles we should read in that material, right? The passage is about one nation, one election policy of the government. Now, when we read the question, it says, what is the underlying idea behind the one nation policies of the government? When we read options, we see the words like federalism, we see the words like decentralization. It indicates on what kind of topics we should read for preparing this examination. Now, federalism is very much part of the Indian Constitution. Therefore, reading Indian Constitution becomes very important, number one. And in Indian Constitution, we need to read federalism. However, let's read the question. What is the underlying idea behind the one nation policies of the government? The answer is to apply uniform solutions across India. Now let us understand why it is necessary to read the topics while preparing for this examination. Passage तो यहाँ पे given है, क्या हम इससे आंसर मिल सकता है? हाँ, हमें इससे आंसर मिल सकता है. हाउएवर, अगर हम पहले से पढ़ेंगे तो हम देखकर ही समझ जाते कि आंसर इसमें क्या होने वाला है. वाई? The one nation, one election, the idea of this concept, 1x, 1y, the policies of government, such policies of the government calls for the uniformity, right? And its intention is to bring everything together under one umbrella. Now when we see the words used are to strengthen federalism. फेडरलिज्म का कॉन्सेप्ट अगर पता होता तो हम ये ऑप्शन पहले ही कैंसिल आउट कर देते. टू डिसेंट्रलाइज गवर्नेंस, अगर हमें डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट पता होता, फेडरलिज्म का पता होता, तो मुझे डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन पता होता, तो मैंने फिर से ये ऑप्शन कैंसिल आउट कर देना चाहिए. अगेन टू प्रमोट डाइवर्सिटी, जब बात यहाँ वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन की हो रही तो डाइवर्सिटी अगेन हम, द ऑप्शन इज अगेन एलिमिनेटेड. देयरफॉर द आंसर बिकम्स टू अप्लाई यूनिफॉर्म solutions across India. Therefore, we need to read these topics preparing for this CLAT examination. The next question is, which of the following constitution amendment bill deals with empowerment of Election Commission of India? Directly from the passage, option is 129th amendment. Which committee or report has discussed the feasibility of simultaneous elections in India? Law Commission of India report 2018. Again directly from the passage. A high level committee was constituted by the government to examine the policy one nation one election. The committee was led by Shri Ramnath Kovind. As per the new GST reforms introduced in September 2025, the structure of new GST rates are as follows. These again, all these questions are based on current legal awareness, Therefore, reading newspapers become important. Knowing the basics of the subjects that are asked in the paper, in the legal section of the paper, becomes important, right? And the right mentorship becomes important. The object of One Nation, One Ration Card scheme is to benefit the migrant laborers, again from the passage directly. Next, this is the other passage. Let's read the source. Extracted with edits and revision from B. Shiva Rao's Framing of Indian Constitution. Again, the questions are coming from the Constitution. Alright, and when we see the passage, we understand the questions are from preamble. Therefore, when we read Constitution, we understand that we need to read federalism, we need to read preamble, right? Now, according to the passage, the relationship between the Constitution and the preamble can be best described as both the Constitution and preamble were shaped in light with each other. It is important to read preamble thoroughly, the text of preamble thoroughly, while preparing for this exam. Again, we'll see such questions. This question is again directly from the passage given above. Which of this following not enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution? Again, directly from the text given in the Constitution. We need to ensure that we read such words. Which has been rightly arranged according to the preamble of the Constitution? It is important for us to read the entire text of preamble. The answer is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. Next question. The preamble of the Constitution of India is finally based on the objective resolution. The other question, what was the role of B.N. Rao? He was the constitutional advisor of the Constituent Assembly. We should know who was the chairperson, who were the members, so on and so forth. Now, next paragraph. This paragraph is the extract from the Supreme Court judgment. Now we should understand that reading each and every Supreme Court judgment becomes tedious, becomes impossible. Therefore, we always need right mentorship. Therefore we always need right kind of mentorship who can guide us on what kind of judgments that is requiring you to be well read before appearing for this exam, and for that matter what the law schools are hoping that you must have read these judgments while preparing for your CLAT examination. Reading such judgments and knowing about such judgments will always give you an edge over other students in the university. Therefore, we should make a habit of reading when we are choosing law as a profession. Now, the question is, according to the passage, the court cannot decide what is good or bad governance, but it can. It can indicate constitutional ethos on governance and remind functionaries their duties. The next question. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar believed that the working of the Constitution ultimately depends upon the good sense of integrity of those who are going to administer this Constitution. While respecting the prerogative of the Prime Minister and Chief Minister to select ministers, emphasized that the question is directly based upon the passage. They should avoid appointing persons against whom criminal charges involving moral turpitude are framed. What role does the court assume as described in the passage regarding governance and appointments of the Council of Ministers? Judicial review of all ministerial appointments. What are the constitutional functionaries this passage refers to? Minister and the Chief Minister, who according to the above passage shall not be appointed as the minister, against whom charges involving moral turpitude and have been framed in the court of law. Therefore, by reading all of this, we should understand that we need to read about PM, about CM, about Council of Ministers while reading the Constitution for our legal reasoning section for CLAT examination, right? Now, this is the next passage the source of this passage is the Hindu. Therefore again we understand source क्या है, कहाँ से आ रहा है, and the kind of article that has been selected to put up in this examination, right? This is the legal knowledge wala article. All right, then we see it is about the power of the governor. गवर्नर के पावर से रिलेटेड पूरा आर्टिकल है. The entire passage revolves around the governor, the nitty-gritties about the governor that is mentioned in the constitution. The answer to this question, question number 85, is the governor's inaction is unconstitutional as the Supreme Court has explicitly rejected the power to an absolute or pocket veto, and they are obligated to return the bill as soon as possible if assent is withheld. Right? Assent कब देना है, assent क्या होता है, pocket veto क्या होता है, again reading all of it becomes very much important. देखो, while reading a question paper we should not only read कि question क्या आया था, इसका आंसर क्या है. We should read in between the lines what kind of questions are asked so that we are prepared. Next question. Governor Y receives a bill from State Assembly and after careful consideration decides to withhold assent, promptly returning it with a message for reconsideration. The State Assembly then reenacts the bill without any changes and sends it back to Governor Y. What is the constitutional obligation of Governor Y at this point? The answer is A. Governor Y has no choice but to give assent. After the Supreme Court's judgment of in state of Tamil Nadu versus Governor of Tamil Nadu, a state governor holds a bill for 8 months without taking any action, neither assenting nor returning. The state government believes that this delay is unconstitutional based on the precedent set by the judgment. What recourse is available? The state government can approach the courts as the judgment had prescribed timelines for the governor's action on bills since indefinite delay was construed unconstitutional. Reading newspapers becomes important. In a situation mirroring the Tamil Nadu case, a Supreme Court bench is reviewing several instances where a particular governor has indefinitely delayed assent on multiple bills passed by the State Assembly despite constitutional obligations. If Supreme Court decides to follow the precedent established in state of government versus Governor of Tamil Nadu regarding pending bills, what would be a likely outcome for the delay bills? The Supreme Court could deem assent on the pending bills. A newly appointed governor publicly declares that he intends to use his discretion to permanently halt any legislation he deems inappropriate by simply not acting on the bills, citing an inherent power. How does this declaration align with the constitutional interpretation provided by the Supreme Court of India? The answer is the governor's declaration is unconstitutional. Next question. What are the 3 primary courses of action? The answer is option number C. Give assent, withhold assent, or reserve. Then we have the next paragraph. Again, the first thing we should understand, we should see the source. This explains us what we should read. It is important to read the newspapers. The questions are related to the same-sex marriages. It is again current legal awareness topic. Again, most of the answers can be directly traced from the passage directly. However, knowing the topic becomes very much important. In October 2023, 2 individuals in India who identified as same-sex couples sought to legally solemnize their marriage. Based on the Supreme Court ruling, what is the current legal standing of their ability to get married? Their marriage is not legally recognized. Their marriage is not legally recognized as the Supreme Court ruled that this is the issue for the Parliament to address. Therefore, what we need to understand is we need to understand the role of Supreme Court, the role of High Courts, right? if we know this, we can directly answer this question. We don't need to read the passage. If we know this, we can directly attempt the answer. We can confidently attempt the question. During a legal proceeding in India, an advocate argues that the Supreme Court should directly legislate on same-sex marriages because the right to choose a partner inherently implies a fundamental right to marry for all the citizens. How would the Supreme Court judgment likely to counter this argument? The answer is the court held that there is no fundamental right to marry. Again, reading of newspapers becomes important. Again, reading of the recent judgments, the recent current legal issues becomes very much important. And what we should read amongst all the information available right out there, we need a right mentor for that, right? Following the Supreme Court's decision in LGBTQ plus advocacy group in India aims to achieve legal recognition for same-sex marriage, to which governmental body or bodies should this group primarily direct its lobbying efforts to secure the necessary legislation? The answer is the parliament. आप कहाँ पे जाओगे? आप parliament के पास जाओगे. What we understood, we understand that it is important to read what is parliament, what is the role of parliament, what is the role of a Supreme Court or the high courts. While same-sex marriage is not legally recognized in India, however, the Supreme Court did offer some acknowledgements of rights for same-sex couples. Which of the following rights was specifically affirmed by the court? The answer is the right of same-sex couples to cohabit privately, the right of marriage, the right of inheritance, the right to adopt children or maintenance. All such rights were not granted, right? Ramesh and Suresh, a same-sex couple in India, have lived together for a decade and want to ensure that they receive legal benefits equivalent to those married couples, such as automatic inheritance and pension rights. Based on the Supreme Court's judgment, what is the primary obstacle that they face in achieving these benefits? The answer is they cannot legally marry. The acronym that is evolved, what does IA plus refers to? It refers to intersex and asexual. So these were the questions asked in the legal reasoning part of the CLAT 2026 examination. If you have any doubts and if you need help with the legal reasoning section, you can comment down below. You can ask me questions there. I will be happy to help. Thank you.